Good day everyone, welcome to a new video on Saturday this time, and today we're not going to discuss TA too much. As you can see on the screen, we're going to discuss why I'm allocating money towards altcoins. I've been saying it quite frequently in the past weeks actually, that December is going to be the month that you want to accumulate those altcoins, and I'm still feeling or expecting Q1 2021 to be massive. But first, later today on Saturday, I'm going to do a giveaway on this YouTube channel. So if you want to stay tuned, you have to subscribe to the channel so you can actually see that video and get notified about this video. Next, if you want to know my strategy in this market and you want to know which altcoins I'm buying and what trade IDs or setups I'm trading, check out the website that is in the description beneath. Where I'm sharing everything, including my full strategy. Next to that, also follow me on Instagram, and now we can start with this slide sort of presentation thingy. As the primary reason why I'm buying altcoins is FOMO. As everybody is currently jumping into the markets, I thought it's a great idea to start buying altcoins given to FOMO. That's kidding, that's a joke. You should never FOMO into the markets, which means that buying Bitcoin at this point is just a little bit tricky. But there are several reasons why you should be allocating money towards altcoins. Primary reason is altcoins tend to follow Bitcoin in their price movements, which means that money flows from Bitcoin towards altcoins, as Bitcoin is frequently the first runner. Historically, what I just said, December is a great period to accumulate those altcoins. So if you want to buy those and you go back in historical price movements, there's always two seasons in the year. That's the first quarter and the third quarter. And that first quarter is the period for that first quarter to accumulate those, is the period right now. Next to that, longing Bitcoin has a high risk on this at this point, which means that Bitcoin went vertical. The money is probably not going to be made from Bitcoin at this moment, or the ROI, while altcoins have been selling off frequently or significantly with the BTC pair and have been slaughtered and have a lot of catching up to do, which means that the actual risk reward is significant in altcoins as they have to catch up. An example is Bitcoin is 15% above its previous all-time high, while Ethereum is down 55% still. So next to that, projects are continuing to build and progress in the shadows of Bitcoin. You see it all around the markets. eGold, Silica, other projects, they're all building in their own ecosystem, and they will get out of their shadows of Bitcoin and will get into the spotlight. I'll just go through all those four things before I'm going to do a little bit of charting, but the first one I want to discuss is that altcoins tend to follow Bitcoin. Bitcoin is the first runner, which means that Bitcoin always starts to accelerate first, then Bitcoin corrects, altcoins go down as well, but after that Bitcoin starts to grind upwards, is a little less volatile, has its own range in which it's going to be acting. And that's the moment where altcoins take over and have their time in which they are going to do really well. I've got an example here on the sheets. Bitcoin all-time high was in December 2017 on the 17th, after which it dropped significantly as it went from 20k to 11.6k. ETH also crashed. And there is an idea that altcoins did go up against Bitcoin. No. During the drop, ETH also corrected 30%. It dropped less as the BTC pair started to bounce upwards. When the correction was done of Bitcoin, altcoins started to trigger massively, and ETH ran from $300 to $1,300. That is the case every time. Bitcoin starts to accelerate, Bitcoin corrects, altcoin correct too. Most likely not as hard as Bitcoin, as the BTC pairs will bounce up, which means that there's actually a strength in those pairs and strength towards altcoins. And once Bitcoin has finished its correction, those BTC pairs have already bounced up and then they start to accelerate. So Do you want to be waiting for a Bitcoin correction at this point if you want to buy those altcoins? I do not believe that you should be fully out of the markets and should be waiting to get in fully. An example with that is the altcoins. If you want to get your positions ready for the first quarter of 2021, I think you should be accumulating them right now. As when Bitcoin starts to consolidate for maybe even a week only before it starts to correct, and from which level we are going to correct, we simply don't know. But during that week, altcoins will already will be pacing up with the momentum of Bitcoin. An example is Zilliqa. It's already up 200% in the previous 2 weeks, and especially in the past days, it has been doing really well. And if you're waiting for the Bitcoin correction to occur, you're probably going to buy those altcoins on a higher level than what you could be initially buying them. So there's never a guarantee that altcoins will go to lower levels when Bitcoin starts its correction. Altcoins can make their first little run. For instance, Zilliqa did a run from 2.5 cents to 5 cents, then make its correction of 30%, and then start to accelerate. So altcoins can already start making their movements before Bitcoin starts its correction. December is a great period to buy altcoins. We're going to discuss that through the charts that we have. But every time the Bitcoin dominance peaked out, it was December or around this period. And then in January it started to drop significantly. That's since 2016, heavily correlated with the momentum on ETH, of course, as ETH is the primary reason why altcoins rally upwards. But ETH starts to look really well on the USDT pair. Most likely that's where we're going to get that correction given through a correction of Bitcoin. But ETH BTC starts to look really well. And we're going to discuss that in a little bit. And actually I've discussed that yesterday as well. Longing Bitcoin is quite tricky at this point as it went vertical, which means that the potential upwards profits on Bitcoin by longing it at 23k are significantly less than when you buy it at 10k. So the potential upside there is just less, is getting less by the day, and the potential upside on altcoins is incredible, which means that there's more potential longing profit to be made on altcoins than on Bitcoin at this point, and that's why you can get those altcoin seasons. And at some point you're going to see that the potential upside for altcoins is getting less, but the upside potential on Bitcoin is increasing, given that it's again attacking resistances, and that's when you see the money flow towards Bitcoin. So these are the reasons for those cycles. Projects continue to build. People call projects scams, given that the price is dropping down. Price and fundamental progress are two different things. For instance, Bitcoin dropped down to 3k while there was still progress, there was still being built. People were still interested in the project or in Bitcoin in itself, and the interest was only increasing, but there was also a higher level of people calling Bitcoin a scam, given that the price went down. That's only because their own position is in a loss and they can't find a reason for their loss, and then they just start to blame the project or the asset. Who's the one to blame? That's yourself. You've taken a shit entry, you've not done your research well, and that's when you are. That's why you are the only one to blame. Primary focus is currently on Bitcoin, but this will shift the moment that Bitcoin starts to calm down, and then the altcoins will shine. Does this mean that you need to go all in? Of course not. Allocating a certain percentage of your portfolio is providing significant opportunities at this point. You should never go all in on altcoins. It's just scaling in, scaling out. So at this point, I'm increasing my altcoin exposure, given that I'm expecting them to do well. But at some point, that altcoins are everywhere on top, and people start to say this is the new Bitcoin, I'm going to scale out my altcoins and probably go towards Bitcoin more, or maybe even USDT, given the market circumstances at that point. Then the primary question is what you have is, what am I going to do if Bitcoin corrects? Well, I'm not going all in, which means that I have liquidity. And given what I just said on Zilliqa, I can make profits already by the buys that I do right now. And if I go underwater for 15 to 25%, I take that for granted, as the potential upside is several hundreds% on my portfolio. So next to that, I'm going to use the liquidity that I have to buy those dips. And probably, and especially if you compare it to December 2017, those dips are relatively short. So it's most likely going to be a week in which I'll be triggered with my buys, and within a few days I'll be back in profits. So allocating is a wise strategy to do. Now let's check some charts in which we can see that silica is the primary example of what is currently happening in the markets. We see a heavy bullish move. Also, when we check Bitcoin and the historical price action, you can see that the drop down occurred from the 17th of December in 2017, heavy drop down of even only 5 to 10 days during this period. And we have to use the ETH/USDT chart. We can see that this drop down occurred as well. It was the same day, same period, and then it started to accelerate. So such an example is most likely what's going to occur. But what you can see, altcoins went already up primarily or previously before that correction occurred. So ETH/USD, we do know the view. Most likely we're going to get a certain correction at some point. The 3-day chart looks quite likely for that actually. But ETH BTC is looking eager for continuation, as there is a higher high made. We are back inside this range we constructed previously. We have flipped the 0.26 level for support, and therefore there's most likely a continuation to occur. Then finally, Bitcoin dominance chart. 2016 top was made, 49% drop on the dominance. 2017 top was made in December, drop as well. 2018 similar example. 2019 similar example. And right now it starts to look that we're topping out as well. So hopefully this video has helped you in the guide or in your approach on the cryptocurrency markets. If you want to learn more, check out my website where we educate you and where I'm sharing everything surrounding my strategy. Have a wonderful weekend.